It makes sense that one of your early welcomes to the Museum exposition is a handful of different kinds of maps. Mapping is always meaning-making, and as the inscriptions from A Archival Arcosium in this room remind us, so is art. As a critic, my job isn't to tell you what meaning to take from any of this, but to share with you the meaning that I found, and to hope that it gives you a grounding from which to deepen your own understanding. For me, then, the museums have always been about space. Not outer space, but the experience of being in an environment. Actually, for me, almost any software that models in 3D and lets you move around is about space. This is why a critic can only give their own version of meaning. But the museums are particularly interesting explorations, since they approximate the physical gallery in ways that can only be done digitally. Beginning, then, with the maps. The colour-shifting model of the building you're currently standing in, well, that your avatar is currently standing in, immediately sets the stage. Firstly, this is a building. Secondly, that double reality I already alluded to. You are in it. You're also, I assume, at home on your computer. This is the space you'll be exploring, and also it's not. Thirdly, the architecture. Who would build a building like this? A digital architect, not bound by physical laws. It draws attention to its unrealness, both with its strange jumble of floors and towers and in its holographic representation, flickering and fading. Look around you. The walls have the same uncanny strangeness, but walk into them and they're solid. The roof is open. Of course, it never rains here, but there are mountains. The building isn't isolated, it's somewhere. Then the other maps. The museum exposition is in every direction. A map is not always guidance. You can go wherever you want. Maybe you consult yet another map, the one which shows which artists are where. Maybe you're familiar with a name and you want to go there first. Or maybe, like my first time in the exposition, you've opened the menu and seen that tempting number. You've discovered 0 out of 40 artworks. The video game compulsion takes over you. What's the route to take for completionism's sake? Should you be hunting for secrets? What kind of meaning does this scaffolding add? On one hand, encouragement to see everything, to give every piece of work your attention and consideration. On the other hand, it transforms the art into a checklist, potentially making it feel more like an obligation than an exploration. Maybe you don't need to see it all, maybe you just need to see enough. Of course, what enough means is an entirely different question. What you just heard is the first entry in the audio tour that I made for the Museum exposition, a digital art space that released in November 2024. I first encountered the museums, of which there have been 4, in 2018 when I briefly covered the Museum Garden, and in 2019 Nat Clayton wrote a piece called That Belongs in a Digital Museum, which stuck with me. In that piece, Nat interviewed George Buckingham, one of the earliest museum contributors, who said, "A lot of curation comes from the urge to grab people by the shoulders and shake them and say, 'Hey, look at this, isn't it great? Isn't it really fascinating?' Digital curation makes that accessible. People don't have to leave their homes, and the museums are available for pay what you want, including for free. But there's more than that. The curation could have been a handful of links or images on a flat website. Instead, it's a recreation and a rejection of the physical space. Curation isn't only about showing people things, it's about creating context. In that audio tour, I might have said that it's not a critic's job to impart meaning, but I was painfully aware that what I said would heavily impact the context of how people encountered the art. It was a responsibility that I wasn't entirely sure about taking on, although thankfully people seem to have received it well. But there's a lot more context in the museums. As my tour goes into, exploring a digital space brings a series of associations that a website doesn't. There's which artworks are next to each other and how they speak to one another. There's the physicality of movement, and there's how the UI shapes your experience. At its very simplest level, I still love that the museum makes possible things that would not be possible in a non-digital space. Like, as soon as you get into the museum, you immediately have to go outside and take in this landscape that the whole thing is set in, and the huge concrete and metal structure that is itself part of the experience. It immediately starts to play with scale. Here's a huge monument next to a dollhouse that you can literally shrink yourself to look at. The museum's curator, Michael Bartow, reached out to me to make the tour after I interviewed him in 2022 for a piece at The Verge about the Museum Society, the third entry in the series. In that piece, I talked again about the experience of its space. You can get outside in the society, wandering out into the void for a better look at some of the giant figurines made by artist Joost Egermunt. You're sort of breaking the rules, Bartow told me, because we feel like our rules still apply, meaning that when the museums step outside of them, they cast a new context on everything that's happening. One of the artwork from the exposition that stuck with me the most is, well, I'll put the name on screen. When you approach these video clips, well, again, it's better that I show you. Even though there's plenty of unexpected physics warping things happening across the museums, this one still felt somehow transgressing what a gallery should be able to do. And as I said in the audio tour part for this, it's somehow heightened by having Alice Tolsma's Stardust right next to it. The bright colours and stillness are something grounding. Still, the thing that haunts me most about the museums is the context that I brought. I read Nat Clayton think about them spatially, and then I wrote about them spatially. I have a column at the magazine Unwinnable all about the experience of digital space. Of course, this is how I would approach it. But are there other contexts? Certainly. The perception of the artwork is the engine of the artwork. Without you, the artwork does not go anywhere. With you, the artwork is unbounded and enriches all that there is simply by your beholding. Thanks so much for watching. I really didn't scratch the surface of what I love about all the artworks in the exposition, so I'll leave a link to it in the description. It's pay what you want with a free option and a suggested admission price of $10. I hope you enjoy it.